Communications Plan. Get started at ready.gov.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans America. I just don't think my family would be as happy as they are without the support that I received from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Go to pva.org to learn more.
Where's the show sheet?
www.
I got some guests coming in, hopefully, the rest of the year.
Okay.
Should be good.
Truck station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are streaming live on YouTube here. We're going to be covering the post-election and Federal Reserve meeting. We're going to be talking about Zillow possibly being the national MLS and go over some business planning practices for agents. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, and Sarah specifically, you can do that with the link in the comments. So Sarah, we got a lot of election talk last week. It was a whole thing. I think a lot of people are just glad it's over.
Sure.
And then the Federal Reserve met like right afterwards. So there was a lot of financial news that came out. So what I wanted to talk about is what the new presidency and what the Jerome Powell meeting with the Federal Reserve, what that might mean for the market. So what's your take after the Fed cut the key interest rate 25 basis points? What do you think about some of these policies that are be floating around? There's a lot to go over here. Let's talk about the Fed first. What do you think the Fed rate cut means?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what everybody was kind of expecting. And if they had not cut it, I think it would have been pretty surprising. So I think that kind of fell in line with what we were kind of anticipating there. And I think the hope is to still have another one.
So we're hoping, and that's the projections, right? We're going to see another 50 basis point decrease in December. Right now, there's a 68% chance, I think, according to CME Group. So how do you think that's going to affect rates? We did see rates tick down to just below 7%, which to me is a good thing. That was the first time they were there for a couple weeks. I mean, are you feeling that there's some more optimism in the market now that we're past all this nonsense?
Yeah, I think so. I think just with the fact that the election is over, people kind of want to just move on. And, you know, with expecting another rate cut and then just for what the predictions were from all of the different like experts out there, which again, they revise them all the time. But, you know, I don't see any like drastic drop. But I think that we're going to see that like, you know, little tick down and kind of just stability.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people thought was going to happen anyway. And if you look at some of this data here, it looks like the housing market almost took like a week off during the election. And it was, you know, I mean, it was a big election. I think it obviously took up a lot of bandwidth for a lot of people. So I tend to agree with you there. I don't think anything the Fed said was that groundbreaking at their news conference last week. I did want to touch on some of these policy proposals because there's a couple different ideas here that President-elect, former President Donald Trump has. The first was increasing housing supply through federal lands. We don't really have a lot of federal lands in the Northeast, so I don't think that's going to help us too much. Reducing regulations with home builders. They talked about supporting first-time home buyers in the form of tax credits, and then lower mortgage rates. I don't know how you do that. I mean, I would love lower mortgage rates. Like, I don't know about you, but so what do you think of some of these ideas that have been floated out? I don't even want to call them a plan because there's nothing specific. We talked about that on the show here, that both candidates really didn't have anything specific around housing. Right.
Like these kind of seem like he just made like headline statements, but without, again, any plan for how they would actually happen and what that would mean. And I think for, a lot of these things, like if you do one thing, there's a trickle down effect and it affects other areas and other elements that all kind of go into play here. So I think you need, like some ideas sound good, but you need to actually have the plan for how it's going to come into place. Because in some of these cases, some things could probably end up doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I look like federal lands. I think that could help a lot of people. When you look at like where the federal lands are, it's typically like in the Midwest and the West and the South. Now you've got a city like Philadelphia, and they've got all these like city-owned lots, and it's impossible to even buy them from the city. So I like the idea of let's outsource some of this land that's just sitting there and have builders develop on it. I think that could be a big plus, but it's not even federal. That's like city owned. So, I mean, good
Right.
luck working with the city. I think that's very challenging. Reducing regulations on housing construction. We've talked about this on the show here that there's a lot of zoning restrictions. And let's say they just changed everything today. You're probably still not seeing any meaningful housing inventory come to the market for 2 to 3 years, best case
Right.
scenario, because you've got to build it, you've got to develop it, you've got to do the engineering, you've got winter coming, so you can't even like see like what's going to happen with storm water management and different things there. So I like the idea of this. I think it could be great, but you got to do that on the local level, and I think that's going to be a tough sell for a lot of people.
Right.
Have you ever been to like a township meeting or like a city meeting or anything like that?
No.
So, well, congratulations. Neither have I. But here's what's happened though. Lower Marion Township, they recently developed like around the train station, right? Like in Ardmore, if you're familiar with that, and they built all these apartments. And this went on. The meeting apparently went till like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Like I get up closer to that time than going to bed. Like that's how long that went. And the project was already approved, but people were just complaining about it. So I think that your local politics when it comes to this stuff is pretty challenging. So I think that's going to be a tall order there. I don't know that we need more buyers. I mean, I don't think that's going to help. I mean, do you feel like we need more buyers in the market right now?
Yeah. No, not really. Unless if it's because people that also have a home to sell are
Sure
making the moves that they've maybe been holding off on making. In which case, at least like you're unlocking something along with the transaction.
Yeah, I agree there. Now, lower mortgage rates. I think this one's interesting, and then I've got kind of a bonus here that I wanted to share. That would probably, I mean, maybe they should hire me to advise the president on what to do. I think it's a pretty good idea. But so obviously, the president doesn't control interest rates. Like, it doesn't like wave some magic wand and rates drop. Instead, what we see happen is that economic policies he believes that he's going to enact would drive rates down. And that's really difficult to achieve without some significant shifts in monetary policy. And we are seeing the Fed obviously talking about reducing the federal funds rate again, but that's a long-term thing. I don't think that's going to have any meaningful fix here. Like this would benefit a lot of people, but again, we have an inventory problem. We don't have a mortgage rate problem right now. What would make sense? We talked about this before, like some sort of like capital gains tax holiday for like the mom and pop investors. Like think about those people. Most investors are mom and pop, and they own a lot of like first-time buyer properties. And so if they were to give a capital gains tax holiday on all of those and say, hey, for the next 2 years, you sell these, you don't pay capital gains tax, that would bring some meaningful inventory to the market. I just don't know if anyone's actually going to do that, but that to me would be a great way to fix housing where it's needed. What's your observation there?
Yeah, all right. When somebody pays capital gains tax now, who does it go? Like, where does it go? Who gets that money?
Oh, it's a great question. So let's look it up. So capital gains tax, how it works, where it goes. So it looks like it's a federal tax. There's probably some different components to it. I don't really know the answer to this. So
because then I guess I would be curious to know for the capital gains tax, if it's going to like the federal government, how does it get spent or who does it go to? And like, because you kind of do have to look at the how's that gonna like each thing affects something else, right?
Sure.
So depending on like where that money goes, or is it just like sitting somewhere or whatever, like then like yes, like being able to have like for again not an unlimited amount of time, but like a meaningful amount of time that people can unload some of these properties. Because in some cases, if you're paying capital gains on it, like depending on how much margin you have there, you could like owe money after selling it, even if so it's just so no seller is going to do that unless if they have to. So I guess kind of like backtracking for where it goes to find out, I think that would be a really great idea. We're having like, rather than giving like more incentives to the buyers, giving more incentives to the sellers.
Yeah. So the IRS charges capital gain tax. That's what I thought. I didn't know if there was a state portion there. I'm trying to figure this out. I think that this has to do with the federal budget, and I don't. There's so many wasteful items in there anyway. So I don't know what that would look like, but it's it is a federal tax. So I mean, but that alone, that would, I mean, you're talking about 28% tax on an investment property that
Yeah.
somebody's had. Let's say it's a $300,000 or $400,000 home. Maybe they've owned it 20 years. I mean, you're talking about significant money there
Yeah.
that would incentivize people to bring inventory to market, which would ultimately, I don't know if it's going to solve it, but it's going to loosen up the market a bit in a lot of ways. I just think of like townhomes and like
Yeah.
twins and
And
condos
it
and
would
that sort of
also,
stuff.
I think that would also be like impactful for people who maybe have held these properties for a while, don't necessarily want to continue to maybe have all of these different properties, but because they don't want to pay the taxes, even if they're unloading one, then they need to identify the next and they need to get it. Like it could allow some people to unload properties without then picking up another one.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it, right? Is that you're creating another buyer if you're doing like a 1031 exchange or something. So that could be something that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know that any of these policies are going to do much for housing. Now, what we do know is that the election, to me, has created certainty for consumers, and that they know what's going to happen next, whether they like it or not. I mean, that's a coin flip basically, and that's not what we're talking about here. But there's certainty about what's going to happen next, and it's going to allow people to transact in a way where they know what the next few years are going to look like. Have you seen any of that over the past week? I mean, have you seen people more deliberately make decisions, or they're at least understanding like, all right, I can't keep waiting to see what's going to happen here? What's been your observations in the market on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I certainly have had like, there's several clients that kind of like come to mind that, the results might not have been what they were looking for, but at least it's like you're able to, all right, that's done. And like just the uncertainty for particularly that, I'd say like the 2 weeks and really the week of, just kind of being like, we need to see what happens here, even if knowing that that's not actually going to impact what they ultimately need to do or what they want to do here, just knowing that it's done and not having that in like their mental space as well, and like it's sometimes it's just like too much going on in your head and you want to be like, listen, I got this has to get out of here before I can like focus on anything else.
Well, that I agree with. And I think, what's going to happen here is that, I mean, this is the 6th election cycle I've been through. So, I mean, there's been various different parties that have won. So whatever people are thinking, there's always going to be a good portion of the population that's not happy with the result, but their kids keep growing. People, they keep getting married, they keep getting divorced, they get relocated, they have death in their family. All these things are going to happen. And now and even if you look at like what happened with the market last week, I think everyone was just kind of waiting. And if you look at the housing market tracker from Housing Wire that Logan Mohtashami puts together, we saw, he basically said that the inventory dropped noticeably on election week. We saw the number of homes inventory fell by about 14,000 properties. We saw that rise, by a few hundred homes the previous year. I think a lot of people just paused everything. And then afterwards, we saw the Dow Jones rally. Rates came down below 7%, which I don't care what anyone says. That 6 handle goes a long way versus a 7 handle. Yeah. So all of that stuff, I think people are just going to realize like life moves on, and I mean, no matter who you voted for, you hope that the new president does well, right? Like I'm not. No one's actively rooting against like hope the country gets worse. Like if they are, that's a different situation. So you want to see that stuff kind of. You want to see things go well, and the certainty, if you're educating people with data and facts, I think you're going to be able to thrive as an agent. So have you had any people like express concern about the housing market now that the election's over? Like, or what are people saying?
No, I mean, I had a lot of questions leading up to, and I guess even right after the election for, what does this mean? And in most cases, well, you look at, like you were just saying, all of the past elections and kind of how things played out from there, and just letting them know this is where it's at. And regardless of who, won the election, it still trends the same way. And it takes a long time for policies and different things to get implemented. So, if you need to do something within the next year, you're kind of in that area of like, you just have to move forward and do it.
I agree there. And if you are going to take this certainty to a level of, hey, I'm just doing this, I'm not going to try to forecast the next 6-12 months, there's probably some opportunity for you because most sellers got to go buy a home, right? That's how it works. Well, we're seeing inventories up a little over 11% in the greater Philadelphia area through October. That doesn't account for what happened so far this month. And all the predictions, 9 out of the past 11 elections, we've seen inventory jump up and the number of homes have jumped up. I mean, the homes that sold, I shouldn't say inventory, the number of home sales have jumped up. And 7 out of the past 8, we've seen prices go up after the election. So it hasn't been a bad thing. The only time it didn't was the 2008 crash, which was horrible for everybody. So if you're a seller, hey, the market's going to probably still continue to chug along. And if you're a buyer, hey, there might be more options out there for you right now.
Right.
And prices are going to go up. So if you continue to wait,
Yep.
that may be a challenge. So I think that's what you really want to be communicating as an agent. And even if you look at the consumer housing sentiment, it moved higher in October. So the HPSI, it's one of these, it comes from Fannie Mae. It's the Fannie Mae Home Purchase Sentiment Index, recorded a notable increase of 0.7 of a point in October, bringing it to 74.6, the highest level since February of 2022. So when you look at that, I mean, that's right before rates started to really like jump up a lot. So that's very encouraging. And if you look at this chart here, I mean, it went from 2020, it was obviously a lot higher, and you're getting close to early 2020 levels after the market opened back up. So and that's a 9.7 point increase year over year. So if there's optimism out there, I would argue, and you're thinking about moving, you need to start planning right now. So what kind of conversations are you having with the folks that are like, hey, I'm thinking next year, tell me more? Because that's you hear that every year.
Oh yeah.
Between now and the end of the year.
I mean, I know yesterday I had a buyer consultation with first-time buyers who, we were talking and they had said our lease goes until mid-March. Like maybe it's way too soon to like start talking. And I was like, no, this is the perfect time to start talking.
It's good advice.
So we met, ran through everything, just like how it works, what the steps are, what to do first. And that way, when the right home comes up, we're in a position to be able to go out and take a look, and everything's been explained, and there aren't any big surprises there. It also, like if you have a mortgage, typically like the minimum that you're going to be putting in for the settlement time frame is 30 days, right? And sometimes you want to give a little more buffer room in there. You also need to line up with a seller for what time, what their time frame is for settlement. So easily from when you get under contract, you could be 2+ months. I'd say most cases you're around like 45 days, but still like there could be a variable there. And then sometimes people go out and the first home that they see, they put an offer in and they get it. But typically that's not really the case. So you have to factor in a good bit of time there just for searching and kind of narrowing down your area. And for, so all of that stuff takes time. Very rarely are you, I'm going to start my search today from nothing, and I'm going to be settled and in my home in a month and a half.
I love that you're able to sit here and reverse engineer a move that seamlessly, because one of the biggest concerns that buyers and sellers have is timing. And a lot of agents, they tend to focus on like price and how they're getting paid and all sorts of different things. Timing is the biggest issue for a lot of people, according to a lot of these surveys that are out there. And if you can't reverse engineer that as an agent, I think you're missing out on an opportunity to really educate people in a way that can be very helpful and alleviate a lot of stress for them. Because you think about the timing, right? Like what's involved. You got a mover. Okay. So you got to get a mover in there. Where are they living now? Do they have a lease? Do they have to sell another home? That's a whole nother component.
Right.
How much, if I want to move, like you said, if I want to move in March, well, this is when we want to be talking now, because if they find something mid-January, well, then they're in mid-March. That's not that far away. That's only 60 days out, and they've got to find a home.
Right.
And in addition to that, the worst thing you can do as a buyer is just wait till the right home comes off the market, then get all your stuff in a row. I mean, have you ever had anyone miss out on a home because they weren't ready?
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
It's one of those things where you've had the conversations leading up about why it's important to get all of these pieces in play. And, I know some very great lenders that do pick up calls on weekends and will, put together your pre-approvals and get those pieces in place. but not every lender is like that. So if the perfect property pops up Friday evening or Saturday morning and your lender doesn't answer until Monday and it's a hot property, it's probably already under contract. And then I think there's also, it's pretty, you hear a lot, like, I want to wait to get pre-approved until I find the house that I want to, put the offer in on. And like, that's good information to have for, like, you don't have to wait for the right house because you want to know what your options are so that you're also not wasting your time going to homes that are not going to work, And then I think just back to the timing of things, like if you are in a rental, you don't want to feel in such a pinch for like, oh my gosh, now like I don't want to renew for another year and they're not going to let me do month to month. And then all of a sudden you're like scrambling. I feel like it's a lot more comfortable to be able to find that home a little bit earlier and then either negotiate out a longer settlement and say like, this is how we like, this is what we can do. Or then have that conversation with your landlord or from whoever you're renting from of like, can I get out early? And maybe you'd be better off having to pay some type of penalty to break the lease sooner, but you found the home that you want and you were able to like not feel in just like, oh my God, I just have to get something,
It's so important to have these conversations up front, and a lot of agents, and I think these new laws, they're not laws, they're rules from NAR with having to enter into an agreement before you go tour a home. I think it's going to actually help people get that information up front in a lot more cases, because I've heard nightmare stories where, we saw a home we wanted, we didn't know what to do. No one told us. And that's a mistake that most agents make. They just put you in the car, they show you around, and there's a lot of stuff to navigate here with all this economic data we're talking about. I mean, we're actually in a good spot, I believe, because the Fed looks like we kind of know what they're going to do next. Looks like rates are going to be gradually, coming down maybe mid sixes by the first quarter. So not anything too dramatic from where we are right now. We're seeing rate quotes like 6 7/8 today. Chairman Powell said that, his opening statement was the committee judges the risks to achieving its employment and inflation goals are roughly in balance because they have that dual mandate, which is great. The economic outlook is uncertain, and the committee is attentive to the risks on both sides of its dual mandate. People kind of know what to expect here. And, I think that the important thing to realize, too, is that Donald Trump appointed Jerome Powell. So I don't think he's going to just throw him out of first of all, he can't do that. And it's against the law. Jerome Powell actually was asked that question at the press conference. But the point is that we kind of know what's coming next. And this certainty now is going to help people maybe transact a little more clearly, because we're not going to be seeing 3% rates again. Inventory is starting to come up. And that's where, having these kind of meetings like you're having with people that say, I'm looking at Q1. Now, if I was an agent, I'd want to just meet as many new people as possible these next 50 days or whatever it is, 48 days. And whether they transact now or not, that's not the point. This is a great time where people have a little more time off. You can get in front of them and it's way easier to plan. And if I'm a consumer, I want to just have everything ready to go.
Right.
Because you never know when that opportunity is going to come up. Or the flip side is, for a seller, historically, Q1 is a very busy time for sellers, and you can kind of beat some of that competition. So the certainty post-election, no matter who you voted for, whatever you were hoping would happen, we're past it now. And the certainty should lead you to better decision-making.
Right.
Great place to break it, Sarah. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. We are going to be talking about Robert Refkin. They had the big NAR conference in Boston. I was invited to it, didn't go. Shocker there. And he floated out that Zillow might be the new national MLS. So we're going to talk about it next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Shouldn't have to sacrifice great service.
Put the wrong headphones on. I guess I moved the mic.
We have access to great low rates without the complications.
Put my elbow on this.
Bigger online banks.
Goes down every time. It's very annoying.
Lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000.
Have you ever paid attention? Here, you want the login for this?
For the best local
Lisa at Chinati.com.
because
I'm not paying for this.
Look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating
It's asking
in the
for
greater
job
Philadelphia
function.
area for 40
Just log
years
in.
with a focus on smooth,
He's probably
easy
trying to start an
access to home purchasing.
Whether you're a
Go
first-time
back.
buyer,
Get this thing
upsizing
here,
or
I can't see.
downsizing, or just
It's
refinancing,
probably
we
good
have
so people
programs for
don't
you.
creep on what
We
you're
also
doing. I
have
get that.
closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free. No
You gotta log
cost or
out, 'cause I don't have an
commitments. To
account
learn
anymore.
more, visit our website.
They started giving it free for,
or give us a call at
It won't let me like go back to
Don't
the
worry, I'll just tell you what's happening. We know what to do.
We always have a person available to take your call
Technology.
with
They
around
they invited me to go to this. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to NAR. Have you ever been to like a board meeting at the local board?
No.
I've like thought about going.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm just worried about the people that are
The
making
Toole
decisions.
Sales
But I'm like,
Group is the
Yeah.
#1 Remax team in Pennsylvania with over 165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great
there's no way I'm
place to
paying for
work
it.
with
And
and
it's expensive
no
too.
one
It's
knows
like
greater
$100 a
feeling better
year.
than we do.
Yeah.
We know real estate,
Probably
but
all watch
more
this.
importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all
And
the
I'll send you
tools
the
to
password so
succeed.
you can log in
Even our
later.
brand new agents sell 17 to 24
know.
homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the
It's like,
Tom
are you a
Toole
Simpsons
sales
fan or something? Like, I don't know. I
line
don't.
at 610-692.
Leo's been watching that. I'm like, oh my God, what am I letting my kid watch?
Visit TomToole.com. That's
So, no, I
Toole
guess
with an E.com.
we
Sell your home for more.
for
and
TV
remember,
now
real
we
estate goes
do
more. You always get more when you work with Tom
why
Toole.
can't I think what's
Have
the
you
name of what we do?
considered a career in
YouTube
real
TV?
estate?
Yeah.
You
I
will
wanna get
control
YouTube.
over your income.
Yeah, and I guess like maybe it does pop up. Well, now also like Disney Plus, I think has the Simpsons on it.
Yeah,
But, like,
yeah,
it's
let's see
nothing
it.
that like Maddie's like picked yet. So, but yeah, I feel like if she did, I would probably be like, oh my God, this is why my parents didn't want me to watch this when I was a kid.
There's some funny stories to say after the show. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about Robert Refkin dropped this at the NAR NXT conference. Said Zillow is going to be the next or going to be the national MLS. Very hot takey comment. That's the first one I've heard in real estate in a while. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, specifically Sarah, to talk about your real estate needs, you can do that with the link in the comments. So NAR annual NXT conference. So I guess I don't know what it stands for. It's the big NAR conference, right? It was in Boston last week. And Robert Refkin has been talking about clear cooperation like constantly at this point. And so there was a session called The Future of the MLS. And, no one talked about the pocket listing rule. You got to love NAR, by the way. They didn't even mention the clear cooperation policy at all during this entire conference. Like, it's such a big deal and no one even talks about it. It's the elephant in the room that you don't address. I don't think that's a good business practice. Anyway, so Robert Refkin's in there. And there's been debate going back and forth about clear cooperation and having to use the MLS as a seller. And Refkin said, I think if you were going to build an MLS today, it would be national. There wouldn't be 548. And my view is that Zillow is going to be the MLS. It's just a matter of time. So what do you think about this comment, Sarah? Give us your reaction here.
I hope not.
Well, tell me more. Why do you hope not?
Well, because I feel like it would be, I don't want to say like conflicting, but like right now the MLS is a place that you can go to and get all of the information. I know how the layout works. I know where to find things. I am able to generate reports. And I feel like if it gets funneled, I mean, obviously the platform would have to change for that to happen. But I don't know. Then they also would just, I feel like they're tracking everything. So they would be like looking at everything that you're doing. And if you're like researching a property and running comps for like the sale for it, if you're like, trying to get a listing, I don't know. I feel like they'd suddenly reach out to I don't know. I feel like they'd slip in and just try and like take advantage of your searches and what you're doing.
Well, they are tracking everything. I can confirm this is happening. Why I don't totally agree with this is that Zillow's a licensed brokerage. So I mean, obviously there's like a conflict of interest there for them to be the national MLS. I guess the point is what he's saying is that Zillow's got a brilliant strategy. He had a lot of nice things to say about Zillow, and Zillow's a great piece of business to have in your corner if you're doing other things. I think is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So They became a broker in every state without having office space, without having agents. They were able to get all the listings through the IDX feed. Obviously, they've got their Flex accounts. We're a Flex partner, full disclosure. And they went on and he explained all these things. So then Zillow's chief industry development officer, Errol Samuelson, who I got to meet a couple times, see him speak, very smart guy. He didn't respond. He didn't say anything. And but they did say at its essence, the reason the MLS is so important is that it is an unbiased, open, two-sided marketplace where there's equal access to information. This is what Samuelson said before the Zillow hot take that Robert Refkin delivered. It's a fair level playing field. Everyone has the same opportunity to see the same data. Mm-hmm. I think the MLS is one of the things that makes the U.S. real estate market so vibrant and so efficient. And I mean, most countries don't have an MLS, so I think that's actually a good point there. And so, I mean, what do you think about these is Zillow angling to do that? You've got these other MLSs that they're companies, they've got CEOs. I mean, this is a very tumultuous time for an MLS, especially with compensation being dropped off of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Zillow is always thinking of their next, what's coming up next for them. And I mean, from just for a business standpoint, like that's important. You should always be thinking about how to grow and how to pivot and what to do next. I think Zillow's great for, just consumers who want to be able to, it's a great way to go on and search properties and look things up and get pieces of information. And, but just from the, on the other side of it as an agent, I feel like having a separate platform that you go to is pretty important.
Well, that I agree with. I think there's got to, because it'd be like going to another brokerage's website and saying, hey, here's the be all end all. Here's what happens with Zillow, by the way. Property taxes are wrong on there all the time. Mm-hmm. Some of the listing statuses aren't correct. There's errors that happen. So it's not that real time database that Errol Samuelson talks about. And I think it's, this is one of those hot take comments. I mean, I don't know that would actually be what would happen here because they are a brokerage in all those states. I'd imagine they have to turn their broker licenses over or something, which would ruin their business model because then they can't collect referral fees off Flex partners and everyone else. Right. So I don't know if that's one thing. The other thing he talked about, which I found kind of interesting, is that he said that days on market is a negotiating point, which I agree with, and that there's some disadvantages to having all this transparency to the marketing that's out there.
Is that saying for Zillow?
Well, just in general on the MLS, because I mean, when you see high days on market, what do you think of?
Opportunity.
Well, so tell us about the opportunity. Give us some more information. I love that answer, Sarah. That's excellent.
Yeah. So typically, if I see high days on market, one of the first things I do is I look at the history and I see, has it gone under contract at any point in there and then come back to the market? Has that happened more than once? Then, reaching out to the listing agent to find out, have offers come in that they've rejected, because high days on market, if there's no price adjustments, does not mean that you're going to be able to get in and get it at a lower number. They may be sticking firm to whatever number it is that they have listed there. So it's kind of important to find out, have they rejected other things that came in lower, just so you kind of know where the seller's at. Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, as time goes on, an offer that maybe they had rejected 2 months ago would be acceptable to them because they're still carrying the cost of the property. Sure. Things could have changed. So you kind of want to get a full picture there. But typically, if you've got higher days on market, you're either going to be able to negotiate out some additional terms, maybe get some of those other inspections in, or kind of work with price.
So I think that's really well said. Now, what consumers usually think is there's something wrong with the house. Right. They're like, what's wrong with this place? It's been on the market 18 days, and which is incredible to think that's the number, but that's really the number that we look at because the median days on market is 11 right now. So, and what Robert Refkin's saying here is that it becomes a negotiating point in other countries. Like in Australia, sellers don't have negative statistics posted next to their listings on the most popular listing site, and the listing agent attribution is prominent. So what they're saying is that it's not every country is built the same as the U.S. I look at this as a positive. I want to know everything, right. And we're in this data age here. I mean, I don't think you can look at some countries and say this is better than that, because home sellers and buyers, they want to know all the information. And right. we've seen homes that have been on the market a good amount of time. They still sell for full price anyway, or sometimes
Right.
even above. So
Right.
I don't totally agree with that. And then he goes on to talk about mandatory submission. We've talked about this at length here. So I don't want to go too much into that. Now, what I found more interesting was that the people at NXT, they didn't even bring up this clear cooperation rule. And they said, here, you want to hear why, Sarah?
Yes.
So at the end of the committee meeting, a staffer read out the question from the audience. Why aren't we talking about clear cooperation? Everyone's talking about clear cooperation, but we're not talking about it. And here was the response. We're not moving forward with a recommendation. So what would be the point of that? And this is NAR Director of Engagement, Rodney Gashno. What do you think about that comment?
Well, I don't think that like makes a ton of sense because it is a big topic and like policy changes have happened because of it. Like it's been a big deal. So I feel like that is something important to talk about.
I agree with you. And I think it's kind of silly for that to be his comment, but that's such like it's just another example of how out of touch NAR is because there's two big like points of view on this. And I'm clear the middle is probably the right answer. Like give people options, like let the seller do both if they want to, or do one or the other. And the fact that they're not discussing it, and it's the biggest issue they have, this is the problem with NAR. They don't really hear their membership, and I think that's why a lot of people are not happy about them. So, that's typical.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say here. So, with that in mind, I wanted to ask you this because I got the chance to talk to Jack Miller. He's the CEO of T360. T360 is one of the largest real estate industry research firms in the country. We interviewed him on Knowledge Brokers, and I asked you this at the break. I'm going to ask you again. How involved in the local association are you? Because I have done nothing with them. I'm going to be very clear.
Not really at all.
So tell me more. Like, I'll give you my reasons, but what are your reasons for not getting involved? I mean, just because you're someone that gets involved in, like I've seen you get involved in other stuff. So I don't want to put that label on you.
Yeah. I guess just like lack of time.
That's a big one. That's a big one for me. But a lot of people, Jack went on to say like a lot, and he covered his eyes and he said, well, the association's over here and I don't really care what's going on with them. And then you actually get in, you see what they're doing. And it's like, wow, these people are the ones making decisions and they're so out of touch. And I think that's a great example of what's happening with NAR right now, because a lot of people that are influential in the industry, that maybe have an opinion that people are going to listen to, they just don't want to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a combination of just like, lack of time. And, if you go into those meetings, like, God, I feel like it could be such a time suck, but
well, and that's part of who's involved. Like this is one of the challenges I have with volunteering in general. And I think there's great organizations you can do that, but the leadership's not there and there's no agenda and you're not getting anything done. Sounds like you're a lot like me and you would just check out immediately and be like, get me out of here.
Yes. Yeah. And then I feel like also, and it's kind of like it goes both ways. Like there's, I feel like there's just like different changes and different policies and different things that we need to enact like kind of regularly. And I guess if you went in and you had your opinions and you gave your reasoning why, then maybe things wouldn't go that way. But it's almost like I don't know. I just try to stay compliant with what's going on.
Well, and then I look at it as, okay, could I go find some new clients? Could I, meet some new sellers, right? Could I spend time working with our agents on our team? Or there's a question of best use of time. And I think that's very real because it tends to be those kind of meetings. And those drive me nuts. I mean, I don't know about you. So what Jack Miller said on the interview, and this was one of the better ones we did, is that, one of the key purposes of NAR is their lobbying in Washington, and and not because there's most of our legislatures, they don't understand real estate. When you think about it, we talked about this today. Every person on average transacts every 12 years, so it's unreasonable for anyone to understand what we actually do in our job.
Right.
And I bet your husband has a much better perspective now than what he did even 5-6 years ago of what a real estate agent does.
Sure.
Right. Just being around you all the time. So we can't expect people to understand that. And then there's, so if you can't influence the people that are making decisions, like with this NAR settlement that was in place, like some of the things are a little unreasonable. They don't make a lot of sense. And the problem is, one bad agent can do some things with a few customers that can ruin the reputation of an industry.
Sure.
That's what we see happen a lot. So if you felt like there was a valuable use of your time at your local board or somewhere like that, we belong to the Tri-County board, and maybe it was a little more intentional, do you think that's something that you would be more open-minded to getting involved with, or like like very honestly here?
Maybe to some degree, but only if I had a solution to you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to go in and just be like, I don't like this. Like, I feel like I would want to go in with like, this is how it should be different. And I just don't know that I would spend the time prior to like know what the solution would be. So it's like a lot of things where it's like, I'm not happy with how it's going, but if you don't have something better, then
don't complain.
To some degree. So, and I just don't know that I would be trying to figure that out.
Well, and you're not alone, right? So what Jack said was that a lot of the professionals, the busy agents, they've turned a blind eye, like I said, and it's easy to do. And a lot of people are like, hey, I'm running a business. Like, we got families, right? There's other things. There's only time for so much, right? And then, I don't have the time to get involved. Now, his argument is, why are we letting the lunatics run the asylum? We need to have qualified people. We need to have better people that are advocating for good business changes, which I can see that side of it too, because you look at some of these like rules, like you look at clear cooperation. That's obviously someone came up with that. And it seems like most people just don't like the rule one way or the other. I mean, there's probably a middle ground there. So he's not saying give up all your time to the association, but check and see how you can help, because it's now a bigger issue and the consumer's involved, and you might be surprised if you start showing up who's making the decisions at the association, which, that was kind of a wake-up call to me. So I think there's some validity to that. It's made me at least think twice about it. I don't know what's going to happen from it, but I definitely have thought twice about it. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. But these conferences that are happening, it's like, oh, we're just going to keep ignoring it, but everyone's talking about it. But to your point, no one's doing anything. So, with that in mind, I mean, we have this claim by Robert Refkin that Zillow is going to be the new MLS. We've got Jack's opinion on this, that the right people aren't running these organizations. NAR is kind of ignoring it. What do you think happens with MLSs? Are they going to have to reinvent themselves? Because now there's not that compensation offer in there.
Right. I think until it would take time for something else to come along or for like a change to happen. So like what's going to happen in a few years, who knows? But there needs to be a platform there where agents can go get the information that they need, see all and have like a full scope of really everything, like data, what's on the market, what's going on. Right. So unless if something else comes out that does all of those things, like I think there is a place for the MLS. And I think, even if, compensation isn't posted on there. Certainly that was a big key piece of it before, because that also was binding, right? So if it was posted in the MLS, it was binding. But there's a lot of other things in the MLS besides that I wouldn't be able to run my business today if the MLS just went away.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And if the information on the MLS is pretty powerful. Now we do like trainings around this stuff. I would imagine 95% of agents have no idea what you can do with the MLS.
Sure.
Is that fair to say? I mean, so like there's market data you can get. There's ways to reverse prospect buyers. Now, not every MLS is like that. Bright MLS, our local MLS happens to be that way. There's so many different tools that are out there just to analyze statistics and be able to communicate about the market. And if MLSs were to reinvent themselves in here's how we can keep people up to date about what's for sale. Like they used to have the MLS book, like that would be totally outdated by the time it was printed because things were selling. So, if the MLSs were to go to brokers and say like, how can we help you, and really partner with them, I think that could be a lot more valuable than what they're doing now, which is basically telling them what to do and making up rules as they go.
Right.
So, both of these organizations, and both meaning all the MLSs, we'll just group them as one, and NAR, I think that they could do a lot here to get back to why they were founded in the first place, and would probably help real estate agents feel a little more aligned with them, especially in light of this conference here and everything that's going on. And Zillow being the MLS is probably not good for anybody. They're a broker. It would be a clear conflict of interest. They're a broker in every single state. So Interesting stuff here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got a few minutes left here, and we are going to be talking about business planning season because it is November 12th. And if you don't know what your plan is for next year, you better get on it quick because the year is almost over. Next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
With all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time homebuyer programs. Pre-approval is free, no cost for payments. For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you. Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life, and an unbeatable culture. Agents who've been with us for at least a year average 30+ sales.
I did like read, like I saw there were like some emails going back and forth.
We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at scholarshipprogram.com or visit the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line at tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Get more out of your real estate career, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole. Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you have control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
Adjust how we operate.
You know what I mean? Sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, buyer programs, and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to be talking about business planning because if you're an agent and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, listen up. And if you haven't started your business planning, you probably want to get on that because the year is coming to an end here very quickly. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about your real estate needs, or if you want to get a business plan of your own, you can do that with the link in the comments to connect with myself and Sarah. So business planning. I have an honest question for you. So we've been working together a long time now. Did you ever have a business plan before you got into real estate?
No.
And you were in sales.
Yes.
So how did that help or hurt you? Like, was it a different kind of business? Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, different kind of business. I was kind of just like by myself, like doing what I was doing. So, there were different things that I would try. Some would work, some wouldn't, but I didn't really have any specific like strategy or plan. So I feel like once you put that in place, it kind of gives you some guidance and you kind of don't just feel like you're out blowing in the wind.
I appreciate that. And I think it's, it shows you it's not just real estate. Like most industries, they do a horrible job with business planning for salespeople. So some of the basics of a business plan, I got 4 things everyone should know about these and tell me if you agree or disagree once I get done. So it needs to be in writing. Mm-hmm. You got to have it up and visual and be reminded about it daily. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. Right. Declare it to others. This doesn't mean like other people you work with. It could be your spouse, your significant other. Maybe it's like your kids, right? There's a lot of different people you can talk about with a business plan and you can adjust it at any time. And that's really kind of step 1. So anything there I missed or you want to add in, Sarah?
Yeah, no, I think those are all, they're all like important. If you don't have it where you can access it, if you're not looking at it, it's easy to just kind of put it in the the back of your mind.
Well, I don't even think it's the back of your mind. I think what happens is people do these things and they blow the dust off in April, and they're like, "Well, I haven't done any of this in the past 5 months." And that's why having those visual reminders is really important. So, with a plan, we came up with a plan for you and your business, and I think it's specific to you. But what did you like about that? What were some of the misconceptions you had about business planning before we sat down and started doing this on a regular basis?
I don't know that I really had a ton of misconceptions about it prior to, well, I just didn't really do it and I didn't really know anything about it. It's not really something I thought about. So when we did it the first time when I started here and was in real estate, it was good. It gave you an idea, but I think that a lot of stuff was boiling down to things that I was going to try to do, but knew that I may or may not actually follow through with.
So it was like a test versus something you knew you could commit to.
Right.
So what do you know now that maybe you didn't know 4 or 5 years ago about business planning? Because like we sat down and went over your plan. I love your plan, by the way, because it's very simple
So simple.
in the best ways, because it shouldn't be complicated.
Right.
Like, all right, what do I got to do today? Because so many people, you ever see that person walking around, they're like, oh, here's my plan today, and they got like 5 pages of stuff they need to get done.
Yeah.
Odds are they're not getting that done.
Right.
And it doesn't, and a lot of it might be busy work instead of productive work.
Right. Yeah. So we really just boiled it down to a couple of things that you can do each day and it will not take up your entire day. Because you also don't want it to be where you're doing like so many things, but then don't have time to like follow through with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of, hey, like, and keep track of it and hit it, and you can hammer these like tasks, if you will, off relatively quickly, and then still have, if you focus on it and do it, and then still have time to do all the other things that is like the follow through and going to the appointments and generating more people. Well,
there's this thing called the whirlwind, right? This is probably, I don't know if you know the like where this comes from, but it's like all the stuff you got to do to keep your business going, right? Mm-hmm. So it's returning client calls, going on showings, going on appointments, and you need to go on appointments to sell houses. That's the number one indicator. You can't just blow that off, but at the same time, you see people, they prioritize everything, and then they don't try to bring in new people to meet with, which I think is usually the gap. So if I was coming up with a business plan, I'll give you 3 quick tips here. 1, know how many people you want to talk to every day, know how many new people you want to meet, and make sure your calendar is time blocked so you can manage all these tasks. That's pretty much sums up your plan.
Pretty much.
That's why she's going to have a big 2025. So if you want to follow Sarah, she's at Ty_TyTime on Instagram. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, and we are streaming live every single week on YouTube. If you want to schedule a call with us to talk about your real estate needs, do that with the link in the comments, and we'll see you next week on WWDB 860 AM.